got to go to the Livesey families for their generous support, but also their dedication to Ashby Show over the past 8 years. Our second main sponsor is Wrights of Twycross. Wrights of Twycross is the short name for P.A. Wright and Sons. They were originally established in 1955 by Peter and Jean Wright. Back then, the main activity was farming in the village of Elmsford near Newark. In 1962, with the three sons, they moved to Gopsall House Farm, Twycross, and their fourth son was born just before the move. As growers of potatoes and cabbage, Peter and Jean made the way to buy their first lorry, the AEC you will see around the show today. Lorries that began to play a big part in their business, moving produce in the 1970s. I will tell you more during the afternoon about them, but our third main sponsor is Preston's Contractors. Adam and Rachel Preston have very kindly provided all the watering of the showing fields and the main ring ready for the Accumulator Show jumping competition. We are very appreciative of their support. And now it gives me a wonderful opportunity to introduce you to Nick Batelli, who's going to tell us all about the vintage tractors and the classic cars.
Everybody, welcome to our parade of tractors, of which we have some very interesting tractors. I'll try not to bore you too much with the technical details. And the first one in the road roller, I know nothing about steam engines and road rollers, so I'm not very able to tell you anything at all about those, but nice exhibit, nice to see it going round, and certainly with a track around the ring here that is very flat, because they are quite heavy and works in proper manner in what it's supposed to do. This one's carrying the name of Thomas, and I'm sure if you get down to the tractor section later on, he'll be more akin to telling you something about it. Following that, we have a more modern Valmet tractor, modern day working tractor, and on the trailer behind it is an international crawler, a BTD6 I'm guessing, but very nice, international, British built, popular enough tractor in its day, did a lot of work, industrial as well as agricultural work as well. And this is the petrol diesel, so you start it on petrol and then it runs on diesel thereafter. Coming along the commentary point now, Greenportson End, very familiar for wartime farming operations, grew a lot of food during the Second World War. This one is just pre-war because it has the wider mudguards on it. But standard Fordson was employed on most farms up and down the United Kingdom. And following that is another Fordson End in quite nice, tidy condition and running and sounding very well. Behind that is a Field Marshal, single-cylinder, two-stroke diesel, popular tractor in its day, used mostly for stationary work rather than ploughing and cultivating. This one, I am told, was supplied brand new in 1940-something to the same family that own it now, and it is in very nice original condition. We have a grey Fergie following that, and we shall be talking more about grey Fergies. Following that, a very nicely restored Alice Chalmers Model B. Noticeably an English-built one with a straight axle. There was a lot of American-built ones imported during the war years. They had an arched front axle, but this is an English one built in Lincolnshire. Another grey Fergie with a Fergie subsoiler behind it. They're quite unusual to see, and this one's also equipped with the Lucas lighting kit. The single headlight very prominent. Usually this one has got two rear lights, but in the original kit they were just a single rear light. But nice looking tractor. Following that is the Oliver. Don't know whether that's a recent import or whether it was imported in the 1940s, but very nice and unusual tractor. You don't see many smaller Olivers. You see quite a few of the bigger ones, the 90s and the 80s, but you don't see many 60s. Following the Oliver, there's a couple of David Browns built in Meltham in Yorkshire. A gentleman's tractor. Two slightly later ones, 25 or a 30 with single seat. Earlier models had a double seat. David Brown was famous for their double seat. Then we have another international, British-built international, with a Bamford Woofler for stirring your hay and grass round in lovely sunny summer days. You could be set to work with a woofler to turn the grass. We have another grey Fergie then. Popular tractor grey Fergie was the first tractor really to give us 3-point linkage, lift up hydraulics on the back, grass control for ploughs and cultivators. Very, very popular in the UK. With two Massey Ferguson 35s, red one for agricultural use, yellow one from a more industrial background with more lines and other bits of equipment on. The next T20 is the diesel one, TES20. Again, popular enough tractor, diesels. Fergie got onto diesels eventually. Started off with petrol, then he went on to petrol paraffins with taxation from the government. And then ultimately came with the standard motor company diesel engine, which this one is. We have a Ford 3600, quite a lot newer tractor. Unusual to see a 3600 without a cab. And then International B275, Nuffields, again all popular tractors in the day. Nicely restored Massey Ferguson 35 with a nice display of milk churns in the box on the back, which would have been quite popular. Milk transported from cows down the farm drive to a stand at the bottom where the lorry came round and collected the churns from. Days gone by in a long time ago, but that's a nice representation of the tractor and the milk churns on the back of the tractor, which would be making their way down to the side of the road so they could all be collected. So another Nuffield, again with transport box, sheep, bales in the back, general farm transport. Three Massey Ferguson 35. Massey Ferguson 35, very popular tractor. Very affordable tractor, very usable tractor, lots of new technology on it. These are all the 3-cylinder Perkins engine ones. Oh, and I've got another one here as well with a mower in place on the back. And very popular tractors, were very, very popular. Ferguson tended to make the smaller tractors, and Ford and Fordson tended to make bigger tractors, but that's only a very rough rule of thumb. The next tractor, Massey Ferguson 65, was the bigger version of the 35, more horsepower, bigger tractor, and was Ferguson's efforts to get into the 50-plus horsepower class of tractor. And Massey Ferguson 65, nicely restored, and quite an unusual tractor. And we've got two here today. Two Massey Ferguson 65s. This is definitely an unusual tractor, 158. Tells me it's a Mark III, but I don't know that. But this is French built and a vineyard tractor. You'll notice if you get to look at it from the front or the rear, it's quite narrow. And it's much narrower than a standard tractor for working in the vineyards. 135. Massey Ferguson 152, not a popular tractor, quite unusual. Would be again, I think, French origin, and again a narrow version. 135. This has the safety rollover frame, which came about in the late 1970s. All tractors are required to have rollover protection. Followed by a Fordson Super Dexter. Ford made two models of the Dexter. There was the Dexter, and then there was this one, which is the Super Dexter. And then we're followed by a Super Major, which would be all 1960 onwards. The Supers came out and provided more horsepower, more performance for tractors. With a couple of 1000 series Fords, both Ford 3000s, but there was a range from 2, 3, 4 and 5000s. These are both 3000 tractors. Little 3-cylinder, useful tractor, very popular. As with all Fords, all parts were readily available and at reasonable price. Following them is a slightly older Ford 5000 with a hallmark badge on the side of it, I notice as well, so a local tractor supplied locally. Cab will have been added in the late 1970s when rollover protection came into being.
I just join in after the drive on cars.
The next tractor is a Ford 5000, but much newer version. This is with the factory Ford rollover protection cab, where the driver was suddenly sat inside, not out in the rain or anything like that. But all our tractors are going to be lined up in the middle of the ring, and I do believe there is a presentation at some point. But I'm going to hand it over to a gentleman now who is looking after cars.
Thank you very much indeed. The first vehicle we have here is quite a rare one, a Mercedes Unimog U1200, often used by commercial ventures because of their amazing ability to not only shift large loads but go practically anywhere with lockable dips. Followed by a very nice, well-worked Land Rover, and then an original Fiat 500. Not so many on the roads now, the modern replicas we see, but not the originals. Then a very nice blue Stag and a convertible Triumph Vitesse. Followed by a black MG Midget and another rare car, a Bond Equipe 2 litre, if I've got that bit right. Then we have a car that many of us may have started driving with, a Morris Minor 1000. Wonderfully reliable and known by many, many people. The Ford Anglia van is quite a rarity in that the family owning it moved to Canada, took the van with them, and when they came back, brought the van back. The next vehicle we have is a lovely car owned by someone who also runs I'll get my range of work, a lovely Land Rover, and this Plymouth, a 1958 Plymouth, is a car he's always wanted, and here we have it luckily in the ring today, followed by a beautiful Morgan in dark metallic blue and a Land Rover. I think I'm right in saying I think that Land Rover is called Plant Pot, if I've got the order right. Here we have another Triumph Stag in brown, complete with travelling case on the back. And then another rarity, a Sunbeam Stiletto. These were the fastback version of the Hillman Imp and rather upmarket. Then a 1936 standard flying heavy 12, followed by a Lancia Fulvia Zagato 1600, and then a Humber Sceptre. This particular, a Humber Super Minx, beg your pardon. This particular car is quite unique in that it still has the seat covers on from when it was first delivered. Next we have a lovely Lancia from 1934, a Lancia Augusta. These cars were much revered by many racing drivers of the 30s, including the great Nuvolari, though this is not his car. And we have another Morgan, a lovely white one, complete with picnic basket on the back. And last and far from least, a lovely TVR. Not only are these cars extremely quick, but the Chimera came in different capacities and they sound wonderful. Even if you're not a car fan, the beautiful burble of the exhaust is something to hear, especially when they're working hard. So that's the cars we have here this year. And now it'll go over to Rob and Felicity, I think. Rob? Rob, you want to talk a bit? Yeah, certainly. Sorry. I beg your pardon. Yeah, my case. Thank you.
Where are you going with it? Oh, yeah.
There is going to be a prize presentation here in the main ring, but just before we do, can I just remind you that the strongman competition started at 11 o'clock near the Young Farmers Tent and the shopping mall. Also at 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, the big sheep show just by the cattle section. Just on the vintage Traxton classic car, before I pass you back to Nick, our thanks must go for this section of the show to Robert and Felicity Archer and Neil Shepherd for their help in organising this parade. Thanks also to Kicks Limited from Ashby for their very generous sponsorship this year. What I'm going to do now to tell you about the prizes, the vehicles that have won, I'm